You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And
Mustard Love.
Mustard Love. You gotta love mustard.
Love the mustard.
That's right, we coming to you live.
Hot mustard.
Every single Tuesday night.
Flaming hot mustard.
At 9 p.m. on your favorite social media apps.
Yeah? Which one's your favorite?
Rumble.
Okay.
It's not live on there yet, though.
Man.
No, it's not. That's why I keep repping them.
Game over, man. It's game over.
That's it. We need.
I don't get to use that one a lot. I love that,
We
though.
need more money.
Maybe I should start spamming that one instead of I hate you.
That's a good one. Yeah. I actually did it the other day. I died in a game, and I was like, "Game over, man!" Like I was just saying it to myself, and
Out loud?
Yeah?
yeah.
Okay.
I talk to myself at home.
I do
the time.
all the time. Talk to
And then
myself.
if I can always look down at Edie and be like, "I was talking to her."
Yeah.
Because she just looks at me weird anyway.
She's like, you're talking to yourself.
Like, who
I
is
usually
this weirdo?
segue into talking to my dog. Like I start talking to myself, and then when they stare at me, I'm like, "What are you looking at? Didn't you not like that?" And then
See, if I start doing that and moving that way, she
She'll
like
get
gets
excited.
excited.
Oh yeah, Ellie
Yeah.
does,
Yeah.
and then I regret doing it because I'm like, I'm trying to play. Get off me.
Dogs probably think that we are just the weirdest beings.
I know.
It's like this thing just sits here and stares at this box all day.
Yeah,
No
exactly.
doubt. No doubt. That's what it does. Although, y'all can attest to this. Anytime there's like a dog or
yeah.
an animal on screen, she freaking like
Ellie watches TV.
thinks it's
Yeah.
real.
So I know she could see, because Ellie
Yeah,
barks at.
they obviously don't know it's TV.
It doesn't
Right.
have to be. Well, that's the thing. It doesn't have to be a real animal. Like Ellie will respond
Yeah.
to animated animals.
Yes.
She's just like, oh, that's a dog. There was a ad on. It was just the silhouette of a cat. It was advertising some cat food, and all you could see was just the cat silhouette, not the actual cat. And she started barking at it because she
thought it
recognized
was.
the shape.
She was like, it's
crazy.
night, and that cat's in the
Yeah.
dark.
I mean, I'm telling you, smarter than a lot of. I
Smarter
would say
than some people. Yeah,
they're on the. Yeah,
we know this.
I was gonna say that they're probably on the upward curve of the standard deviation.
Yeah.
And it's not that I think Luke's dumb and doesn't recognize the stuff. I think he's just smarter than Ellie and knows that's nothing. There's not a threat there. It's just a box.
I mean, Edie hasn't
It's a
like
box with a cat in it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He's like, I just don't care. I don't care about that cat.
He only responds to actual like outside noises. If it's coming from the TV, he's just like, oh, that's
that's
that
what you want,
flashy thing.
and you want that from a pit bull.
yeah.
because that's what's going to put the fear of God in
to
them.
attack. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Now we got a couple
Get 'em.
housekeeping items to get off of our list.
Do we?
Next week, it is
Oh.
the celebration of our beautiful homeland.
Independence
Independence
Day.
Day.
Independence Day. It's the birthday of America.
You don't have I'm Back on here. I can hit that.
No, yeah.
Yes. Well, we're
Bill
because
Pullman.
no.
It's like the greatest movie speech.
We'll
man.
have the I'm back after we. come
Who's your
back.
favorite movie president? Is it Bill Pullman? Harrison Ford, maybe?
I don't know. Bill
Morgan
Pullman's
Freeman?
up there. I will not go quietly into that good
I
night.
know,
Yeah.
man. I
I
know.
wouldn't say that good night. That's the poem.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah.
He,
But
Yeah.
yeah.
he kind of paraphrases that a bit. But I mean,
can't
we will
think
not
of the
go
guy's
back without a
name.
fight.
yes.
So good.
The other night we watched National Treasure 2,
Oh yeah.
and the guy that plays the president is the guy that was in Gerald's game,
Yeah.
and I can't think of his freaking name.
I know exactly.
But he actually was a good
plays
president.
he plays the captain in the first Star Trek.
Yes.
The one that recruits.
Kirk.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
He was a good president. He was
don't know.
crawling down through the.
He is good, but I don't know if
corridors
his
and stuff.
I like that Bill Pullman
No,
speech.
yes,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, man.
And if you're not talking movies, I will take. Who was the first president in 24? He was a good.
Oh,
one.
I've never watched that.
It was the. I mean, he's the Allstate guy. I think it's the Allstate guy.
The Allstate.
The black
I think-
guy?
Yeah, I think he was the president. I'm pretty sure it's that one.
You're in good hands. With
I think
me
it
as
is
president.
him. I'm pretty sure it's him. I may be wrong on that.
Oh, man.
If I am, it's
wanna
okay
know
because
now.
we're TV and
That's
and
true.
Yeah,
we're
that's
a movie
true.
podcast.
That's
so
true.
We don't know
yeah.
TV.
Exactly, we don't know TV. Honestly,
none.
there's got to be so many other better president roles.
Yeah.
Bill Pullman's the best.
Bill Pullman's
See,
good.
I thought
gotta
that
love him.
Dean
You gotta
Winters
love
is the Allstate guy.
No, not him.
No?
No. The original All-State guy.
Oh, Dennis Haysbert. Okay, there he is.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Let me see it. Is he?
You were in
yes.
good-
you were in
Yeah.
good
I'm pretty
hands.
sure. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm pretty sure he was the first president in 24.
He was President David Palmer on
That's
the first
it.
5 seasons
That's
of
it.
24.
See, I knew it. Oh, it was first 5 seasons.
First 5 seasons.
Nice.
But no, yeah, we won't be on next week because we're celebrating our country's birthday, the one that is in rapid decline, that we don't really contribute too well to on a cultural podcast. But still, we're going to celebrate it, and we continue to push forward and make sure that we right the wrongs of future generations. We're trying as hard as we can every week here.
Yep.
Tuesday night, 9 p.m. You can watch us. Get included in the movies you should.
Yeah.
You should watch, and the ones you should pass up because they're woke. Yeah, we're not celebrating those next week.
We're still going to have a review, though.
Yes,
we won't have
we
a show,
will.
but there
Yeah.
will be a review that plays.
Probably
correct?
a woke movie too.
probably, and one
Yeah.
that's definitely not going to celebrate anything.
You know
but
what makes
just,
me sad is if this wasn't like the climate Disney is now, where they're stupid. Like to see an Indiana Jones film 4th of July weekend would be amazing.
Yeah.
If it was one of the original 3 that were actually good.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know we don't know if this one's good or not. I just don't have a lot of hope because it's Lucasfilm.
who does?
Yeah, it's not.
Who
under
has
Disney.
any faith at all?
So I don't know.
I've already just decided that it's not going to be good.
yeah.
It's
Which,
not.
and here's the thing. Honestly, at this point, the lower the expectations, the better. I know y'all are probably going to disagree with me, and that's fine. I read y'all's comments, and I completely agree in the text thread. I wasn't able to respond
Yeah,
much
yeah.
today. But yeah, there's some grumblings of the Barbie movie.
Yeah.
being
Oh no,
woke.
I'm still nervous because you never know.
That's the thing.
I'm just hoping that knowing Greta, like her last 2 films where they kind of hyped up some woke things that I didn't feel were really there.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this is the same. It may not be because I wouldn't put it past them to go that direction now.
But then you're right. You all, as you all kind of reiterated in the text, though, we also wouldn't put it past them to drum up some kind of social message that really isn't baked in.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of being like, no, see, cultural warriors unite. We are still together.
If you
on the
talk
left.
up a message that's not actually in there, and the critics go watch it, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, no, we get it, we loved it." And
Well,
it's like
that's kind of the thing is I think you can find a lot of the woke nonsense if you're looking for it. Like you can find themes that you think are there, but they're not. I don't know. I felt like Keith said, with some of her other films, there was talk and there was like, oh no, this is the meaning and this is what she was going for, and it's like, but that's not what I saw. Like I don't know. I guess it kind of depends on.
Well, we don't know
how you interpret it.
We don't know
I
until we see the
I
movie.
know Lady Bird more so than Little Women, but even
Yeah.
Little Women, because of the aspect of, well, it's about women, and it's like this film was really empowers women, and I'm like, but it's the actual story. Like
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. It's like that's fine if you say that, but
Right.
it's just it's Little Women.
And
Like
maybe the reason it was popular to begin with, way back in the day, is because it actually just hit on things that were just normal.
were-
and a real
well, they
person
are.
who
They're
is-
universal themes and
Exactly.
messages that anybody can relate to. Heck, I'm a guy, and I liked that movie. I was like, oh, this is actually a really well made movie. I liked the
You liked all the
romance,
Little Women.
and I did. I
Yeah.
like Florence Pugh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, I will say, I've been a fan of Greta as well. I think you pointed out in the text
And
thread.
Noah Baumbach, who
Yeah,
he
who's
does his
her
own
husband.
thing, but he does write for her movies too because he helped write Barbie. So
Well, and honestly, that's what gives me a little hope
Yeah.
is seeing his movies and how in depth they are. I mean, go
I
watch
still
Marriage
haven't
Story.
watched. Yeah, I still haven't watched the one on Netflix after Marriage Story that
Oh
Sean
yeah,
said
the
was
one
good.
about the end of the
Oh
world.
yes,
Yeah.
I've heard that was good. I just haven't watched it.
But that's the thing. Like,
was good.
Watching his stuff,
White
I-
noise.
I like
That
to
was it.
think about that Greta is not that she's denser than just what Hollywood wants to put on these surface
Yeah.
level pedestals, which are just terrible. I have to believe and hope that she's better than that because we've seen her other work, and it's. I mean, another example that you used, Keith, in the text thread was Jordan Peele. A lot of people
Yeah.
have tried to feed in narratives into his work, and it's like you go see it, and it's like, yeah, there's definitely that in
there's
Get Out.
there's some
Yeah.
flavor in
Yeah.
there, yeah, but it's
And
not
there's- but-
not like browbeating that they.
It's clever
yeah.
though. It's clever and it relates to the story. Like
And
it's
I
not,
would say it still touches
not
on
just there for-
universal themes. It's like, yeah, it's you might touch on some things versus but there's still things I think are more than just the niche, single-minded like that they try to box into with today's political climate. There was another point I was going to bring up, and I think I forgot it when we started getting into Jordan
between
Peele.
the cigar and this beer. I've forgotten most of everything.
No, it had to do with Greta.
I don't even
with,
know what happened
oh,
today.
No, I remember now. Another thing that gave me a little bit of hope was the fact that because originally the Barbie movie was, and we talked about it years ago when they first announced it, but it was really originally attached with Amy Schumer. Because it was supposed to be a more woke
Oh,
gosh. And it was because it was
she
supposed
going to be Barbie's fat grandma? Or
Barbie
something?
would have been fat.
Yeah,
She was going to be Barbie.
Fat
That was because the whole point was to make it
destroy body image.
It was
The
whole point was to be more woke, but apparently because again, this is who's Barbie owned by, Hasbro or Mattel?
Mattel.
Whoever the company is, like there's still things that obviously they don't want to ruin the brand, so they had certain stipulations of you can and can't do this, and then the studio had certain ideas that she said were still too sexist, so she stepped away. She didn't want to do it, and now Greta Gerwig came on board, and I'm like, I kind of have some hope knowing that Amy Schumer left because she's saying they wouldn't go woke enough, that maybe this movie's not, since that was her problem with
even the article you're referring to, Margot Robbie says a couple of times, like, I really was worried that they wouldn't let us do this or they wouldn't let us do that, but I was surprised when they did. And I don't know what she's talking about, what she's referring to, but her opinion of the movie or whatever differed from. He just spilled his beer.
He wants it all.
It differed from Kate McKinnon. So I kind of feel like I don't know. I feel like Margot would have backed her up if in this interview.
I also think Kate McKinnon's also stupid.
Oh, she's an idiot.
Oh yeah. And she's another leftist shield. I mean, look, the fact is it's no coincidence she was part of the worst freaking Ghostbusters film in history.
Say she doesn't know how to promote a film without shoehorning in.
She doesn't know how to be funny. Let's just put it that way. She's not a comedian.
No.
But the fact is I agree. We've heard Margot Robbie has that kind of that tough, thicker skin that I think she's not afraid to tell you what she thinks and wear her feelings on her sleeve.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really care if it offends. I still think she's probably reserved and she's still obviously on the left side of the aisle. I think you're that big in Hollywood, you have to be. But it's still one of those things where, I'm hoping there's not some subtle undertones or whatnot. And I'll be honest with you, some of the marketing, even from Ryan Gosling coming out and being like, oh, no, this is Ken's movie. It's been hilarious. He has made me want to see it for the humor that I think is going to be in it.
Yeah.
I just hope that within the humor, they're not trying to push and shove down a woke message. But, we'll see. I think we're going to check out Oppenheimer first. That's the one that comes out.
They come out,
alongside
I think, the
Barbie.
same weekend, which I'm just
same
like
day.
That's what
I think it's the
I said
same
same weekend. I meant.
I think they're both Wednesday releases.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, I have to double check that. But
Either way, I'm just like, who's doing Barbie? I don't know. They're stupid. Is it? I think Warner Brothers is doing Barbie, which is funny because he left Warner Brothers and is now doing his movie with Universal over their whole streaming thing. So it's kind of funny that Warner Brothers would be like, we're going to fight you, Christopher Nolan, with Barbie. I'm like, okay.
Here's the thing.
It might be Paramount though. I could be wrong. I don't fully remember.
No, that. But is it PG-13 or is it R? Barbie.
I think it's PG-13.
Yeah.
Okay, and Oppenheimer's R.
Yeah.
So I think you are going to get. I think Barbie is going to
have a wider. Well, one you have the brand, you have a friendlier rating. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see. It'll be the battle of the blockbusters that week, and we haven't really had many because even this past week, Across the Spider-Verse
I know.
went back to number one.
How sad is that for Disney?
The Flash tanked, and Disney's Elemental
it's sad
is
for the
still
Flash
at
2
3.
being a superhero movie, but I'm thinking
That's the bigger disappointment, though. With all the promotion and all of what they've tried to do to make this the DC reboot.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, but that is the bigger disappointment.
It's not doing... Oh, I agree. It's not doing well. I just think it's also kind of a slap in the face to Disney to think Disney has always dominated the box office with... until the last year and a half with their family-friendly films. And the fact that you have an animated film out right now with really no competition except for Spider-Man that's almost a month old, and it beats you in your second
in the
week.
middle of the summer when school's out.
Yeah.
Yes.
So people would rather go back to see Spider-Man with their kids than take their kids to see Disney's new movie. That's not... And granted, it did come in second, but still, Disney should have had number one.
Yeah.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
It should have had number one the week it came
really,
out.
The Flash should have had number one. But,
that too.
Yeah, but...
Yeah. I mean... this disappointment all around.
Yeah, I'm just
disappointment all around.
It blows my mind. I'm just like, wow.
So that being said, that shows though, because Indiana Jones is the next one on the block, and we'll have that review for next week. Even though we're not going to have a show again, we're not going to have a show.
No show.
No show.
We did watch a movie that's been out for a while. What'd you say?
No Da. That's what it says. No Da.
No da.
No
No
Da.
Da. No Da Brewing Company.
Yeah.
I don't know what that stands for.
Number 9. Does it say number D? What?
No.
It's N.O.D.A. I don't know. I'm
Nada.
sure.
Nada.
North. Nope. Never mind. Because
It
I'm
is.
thinking
Literally
it's
says Nada Brewing
North Carolina,
Company.
but I don't know.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay. Well, all right.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that stands for. I'll Google it later.
Well,
Go ahead.
It's 15 minutes in.
yeah. We're going to get onto our review. It's a little lesser known film, and that is the review of Nefarious.
With a bit of a lull this week, we find ourselves again with a choice. Unable to see Wes Anderson's latest film, we could choose between Jennifer Lawrence or a film about demonic possession. We enjoy being scared, but we didn't think we could handle the terror of Jennifer Lawrence trying to deflower someone almost half her age for money. So instead we chose Nefarious, a Christian-produced film from the makers of God's Not Dead. Yes, we know, we always choose poorly, but in this instance, there truly was no good option. And the last time we ignored a film about demonic possession, we missed out on a perfectly adequate performance from Russell Crowe. Sad, sad Russell Crowe. Written and directed by Chuck Konzelman and Carrie Solomon, and based on the novel A Nefarious Plot, written by Steve Deese, Nefarious tells the story of Dr. James Martin, played by Jordan Belfi, a psychiatrist tasked with determining whether a serial killer on death row is sane or not. If declared insane, he will be spared his execution. The criminal, named Edward Wayne Brady, a name I assume is meant to evoke unease and comparisons to the likes of John Wayne Gacy, yet only brings to mind comedic actor Wayne Brady, is played by Sean Patrick Flannery, who tells James during their first encounter he is a demon called Nefarious, and he has plans to use James for something, well, nefarious. What was billed as an R-rated horror film really plays out more as a psychological thriller, with the bulk of the film taking place in one room focused on two opposing sides. The demonic entity calling itself Nefarious, and a psychiatrist, admitted atheist, and man of logic. While the film actually does offer some interesting things to say and conveys themes and moral messages I would agree with, I understand why detractors label it Christian propaganda and, to a lesser extent, right-wing propaganda. Though I would argue its messaging is firmly rooted in traditional Christian beliefs without any political considerations. It's only right-wing in the sense that many conservatives hold to Christian beliefs. I dislike using the term propaganda, but will admit that the film makes very pointed arguments using generic and direct verbiage associated only with Christian talking points. The film is less a story meant to entertain while imparting its message, and more a message the creators wanted to browbeat you with, packaged as a quote-unquote horror film. Nothing about the film stands on its own outside of this message. Why is this bad? While I wouldn't argue against many of the points made in the film, as a Christian I agree with a lot of it. I also can't stand blatant pandering. I dislike blatantly woke nonsense in Hollywood films, and will also say I don't support it when done by the opposite side of the political spectrum either. The film isn't terrible by any means, it's a far cry above God's Not Dead. The film's premise of two figures in a room hashing out theological discussion and opposing morals can be compelling if you have smart dialogue, a well-crafted film that has good set production, clever direction, and engaging cinematography. Nefarious has good moments of well-done dialogue, moments where the demon Nefarious explains the fall and goal of the demonic, and scenes in which he showcases his knowledge of the world and theology without having to spew generic talking points. But sadly, the dialogue always does fall back on the generic talking points that Christians will praise and non-believers will roll their eyes at. Performances can be good at times, but also flat or overacted during others. Characters serve no purpose other than to fill their roles as tropes within the story, and the demon's ultimate goal also makes little sense in the long run, as everything he does within the movie works against the idea of corrupting as many people as possible. You could say this is God working through even the demonic, but the film doesn't even bother to address this. I often feel disappointed with Christian-made films as they generally preach only to the choir, Nefarious does a much better job of not doing this than God's Not Dead, but ultimately still doesn't feel like a film that will be enjoyed by anyone more than Christians and maybe casual audiences who don't care about agenda-driven topics one way or the other. I understand not every Christian film needs to win over non-believers. There is a place for films meant to uplift and inspire those who believe. But with this film's message, and in order to reach a wider audience to make people stop and think, it should be accessible to all mindsets. Hollywood refuses to do this in the opposite direction, and what we get are films that are niche to only the groups who agree with them. The same happens with many Christian-made movies. While Nefarious is one of the better attempts I've seen, I still feel it lacks narrative substance, direction, and character depth. Sure, I could say I agree with its overall message and that it's refreshing after so much schlock in the theaters, but having a good message just isn't enough to be a great film. I give Nefarious 2.5 out of 4 stars.
There you have it, Nefarious.
I didn't hate it. I feel like I sounded harsher about my opinion in the review, which I always do, because I do think it has problems. But I did think, as a Christian, like it's one of the better ones I've seen in a long time. And from the people of God's Not Dead, it's almost immaculate. So
I was surprised.
Yeah,
Like that's kind of my takeaway from it was just utter surprise because I did go higher. I went with 3 stars.
Okay.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. In fact, when it was over, there was just a lot to chew on in the dialogue from the demon. There was a lot of things like I know the story of the fall and all that, but obviously this is fictional. There's not a lot about the fall biblically that we have to cross-reference it to.
Yeah.
But if that is the goal and if that is how they really feel towards God, it was terrifying. Mm-hmm. And that was my takeaway. Was I didn't feel like I had some dude at church approach me about this movie and he was like, "Have you seen this? It's a rated R film, but it's got a gospel message in it." And all this stuff, and I was like, "Nah, I haven't seen it." I think I even mentioned it to you all, but I didn't get that. I didn't get the gospel message at the end of the film. In fact, I thought it left a little bit more hopelessness than hope by the end of the film. Definitely not like God's Not Dead, where it's like that entire movie is basically, if you're a Christian, you should pat yourself on the back because you're a good person, and if you're an atheist or a non-believer, you're evil. Like everything about you is wrong. And I felt like this movie did not do that as much, or if any, especially when the demon approaches him about his atheism and says, like, you think that because you're an atheist, that doesn't mean these things aren't going to happen to you because you don't believe them. Like, they're still going to happen. Like, that scared me. And I feel like that's one of those things where, if you are an atheist and you watch this, or if you're a non-believer, you watch this, that could be taken as one of those things. Well, now you're just picking on me. Now you're picking on me about my non-belief. But at the same time, I'm like, well, I mean, he's kind of telling you the truth, because I think it is the truth. And that's, I don't know. I liked the acting from Flannery, the guy that played the demon. I did not think the acting was woeful at all from the psychologist. And when I got to the end of the film and saw Glenn Beck, that was one of the moments where I was just like, okay, now we're at a different level.
The movie's based on a novel written by Steve Deese, who he has a show for The Blaze. So I was like, that makes more sense why Glenn Beck's in there now.
No doubt.
But still, I was just like, I thought that was funny too, because I was like, okay, that's random.
Yeah.
No, I thought I ended up actually going lower than Keith. I went 2 stars. I was right in the middle. I didn't think it was bad. I just didn't think it was compelling. There were a lot of things. Again, I've stated, numerous times on this show that I will probably always be a lot harsher on Christian-made films, just because I yearn for them to be good. And I've seen films made by quote-unquote
every Christian film to be Passion of the Christ.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Father Stew.
Well, I do.
Because here's
Father
the thing.
Stew is a good. It's not a Christian-made film, but it's a good example.
I was going to say, like, for me, it's you look at quote-unquote secular films like that of Father Stew, or even Silence from Martin Scorsese.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I even throw Passion of the Christ because while it is no doubt a Christian film, it's like Mel Gibson is a Catholic. He's a self-professed Catholic, no doubt. But it's still one of those situations that it's like it doesn't take the normal recourse of it's how do we entertain, and that sounds really weird to put in terms with regard to the Passion of the Christ, but how do we make a compelling or interesting movie that drives the attention of the viewer and wants to keep watching and it could alter their perspective on life, but also is a powerful enough movie that evokes emotion out of even those who are non-believers. And that's the thing that I feel like is lacking with certain movies in the Christian genre, and this being one of them. Is my greatest takeaway was that as clever as the writing was in some parts, some of it was a little bit too fast for you to really chew on and to digest. And even some of the points that were being made, I didn't necessarily think were being bad. I just thought it was because it was so dialogue heavy, which again, I know the premise of, I know the setup of him trying to talk to him in the prison. I get that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot you can do, but even visually, there are some more abstract things you could kind of ascertain or take, take into creative direction that a movie like this would, I think, benefit from, especially even in just some of the simple cinematography. I told Keith when he came to review, I was like, there were just so many times where I felt like they set up for a certain scene. They probably read the same lines back and forth. And the delivery was never terrible, but some of the same lines were read, and they probably did it like 2 or 3 times on 3 different cameras with like 3 different camera angles. And they're like, we'll just cut between those and it'll be interesting enough. And I'm like, no, this is where you get creative, because it's literally 2 people in a room for almost an hour of the film.
And that can be done.
You need to get, absolutely.
What's that movie? Was it with Samuel L. Jackson?
That's the Sunset Limited.
Okay.
I texted you guys about that.
I couldn't remember the name.
Neil actually, I think it's a book, and Neil told me that there was a film or whatever, and I watched it years ago, but that's all it is. It's 2 dudes in an apartment talking about theology. One's an atheist and one's a Christian. And it's one of those things where it is better done. Not only is it better acted because you have Samuel L. Jackson and Tommy Lee Jones, they sit at a freaking kitchen table for an hour and 30 minutes and talk about this. And every time one of them gets up to leave, they're drawn back into the conversation. It's like, no, I got to sit down and I got to tell you this part, this is why I believe this. And it's so well done that I felt like this movie did try to, and again, if you say I didn't know it was based on a book, but it seems like it tries to copy that in a way, or at least play off of, we'll just have 2 guys sit at a table and have this theological discussion, and by the end of it, you'll be convinced one way or the other. With Sunset Limited, by the end of the film, you're either convinced that there is a God or you're convinced that you're right and there's not. And it's one of those movies where a Christian and an atheist could sit down and watch it together, and
they
literally
could start their own discussion.
They could start their own discussion, but at the end of the movie, one of them doesn't become a Christian and the other, so there's nobody's proven right. They leave with questions, and I like that about.
Well, I think
it
shows an honest attempt at approaching the discussion, as opposed to, and Keith mentions it in the review, and I think you're spot on. It's like, and that's why I'm not going to bash the film, because obviously morally there's still things that are discussed within the film that I think
the abortion stuff really.
That was great.
I loved that.
There were a lot of things that it touched on that were culturally relevant today that I was like, okay, I knew they were pointing at it, but I was like, I'm fine with this.
Yeah.
Because even if, again, it's the lazy attempt at woke movies in Hollywood to throw in their little line to showcase what band they stick with. And it ticks me off when I see certain movies that could take that attempt on the right side of the aisle, but they don't, or they really cheese it up. And ultimately, I thought this didn't really... I mean, it does go down that path, not to be cheesy, but it does... It's very much a Christian-oriented film. So it doesn't shy away from that at all. But there's just other ways in which it's like, look, you have to attract me as the viewer, whether I'm a believer or not, to be invested in this journey that even this guy is taking. And you do that with creative edits. You do that with creative cinematography, even with the side characters. I told Keith, as like one of the warden, I didn't like necessarily the dialogue they gave for him, or maybe his delivery of it. A lot of it seemed very thorough, like they wanted to get nailed down. Like, no, we researched how this would go if you go into a prison, and I was like, okay, that's fine, but you can still pontificate a little bit and add some creative, flexibility there. But also because it's still a movie. But also the part where he brings out the cigarette and he's like, yeah, every time we do we're about to, serve out the death penalty, I get a pack of cigarettes and whatever I don't have left by the end of the day, I pitch. And I just thought, okay, that's a good character, like just a creative character arc that could have been introduced in the very beginning of him just offering a cigarette and he denies, and then it kind of comes back later on. And then, of course, by the end of the film, you see them both smoking outside. And I was like, okay, this would have been a through line to add a little bit more depth to someone who's just serving a purpose for narrative's sake. And then the ultimate thing where there were just some bad scenes altogether, in particular, the one where the demon breaks his hand and comes out of the handcuff, and then he reaches across the table when all these guards come in, and he brings the one guy's head down to the table, and they're like, no, not yet. And it's like, it's not like he's got a gun to his head and can pull the trigger. I'm like, you can clearly save this man.
I had the exact.
Why are you waiting this long to go and attack him?
Yeah.
It made no
I was like,
sense.
they would have tackled him because that's the fastest way to get the chain off from around the guy's neck.
Yes.
But that, and then I laughed. I couldn't help it at the scene of them beating him with billy clubs. Because I'm like, once he's apprehended, he's apprehended. Why are they still sitting here beating the snot out of him?
And it just
especially in a
looked fake.
Christian film, because normally you want to show that police officers aren't corrupt. And I know they weren't trying to say they were corrupt, but I'm like, it just kind of looks silly that these guys
I think they were trying to add an element of violence just to make it not so Christianese,
right.
And that, I mean, the one area where they added violence that I appreciated was showing him be electrocuted.
Agreed.
When they showed that and showed what it is really like to be electrocuted, that was believable to me. That looked real.
I'm pretty sure that's the only reason it really has an R rating, because there's not hardly any.
There's no cussing in it.
There's no language.
No.
There's a little like that. I think
he
there's
says
like
bastard once is all I heard.
There's a couple small
but still,
ones.
that put it on another level. But then it's touted as a horror movie, even though there was really no horror in it, and that was that was a gripe of mine. And then I think the biggest gripe that I had, which definitely knocked off the star for me, was in the story itself. He tells the psychologist, like, by the time you leave here, you will have committed 3 murders, and I'm thinking, oh, okay. Now if he's going to manipulate this guy and lead him to temptation and lead him into sin, and maybe not even murdering him, but in the unborn baby, I was on board with that. That's
that was
fine.
Good.
That happened by the time he left the room, but the other 2 that he goes into didn't happen while he was there in prison. One of them he even says is your mother, and it was years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so you can't just. I could do that. I could count and say, oh yeah, somebody you neglected years ago, you just murdered them today. Like that doesn't make any sense. So I didn't think that part of the story was very clever.
You're
or
right,
executed.
because
it should have been something he did while he was in prison.
No, absolutely, you're right, because ultimately too, if you're trying to convince him that you are a demon, and he's an atheist, it's like you telling him that he committed something he doesn't.
He's prophesizing something that didn't actually come true, and he's just he's like, I didn't have anything to do with that, and it's just like, well, no, you kind of didn't. That was years ago.
Well, he chose. He chose the assisted suicide.
I know,
so that was his
but
point
it didn't
there,
happen that day.
No,
like
but
the
he's
baby
before you
happened
leave
there.
here, you'll have killed 3 times. So I get his
point. It makes it sound like I'm going to make you do this.
It does,
today.
but if you take the literal wording, it would be before you leave here, you'll have been killed 3 times.
Murder?
So technically, he is right. Before he left, he had committed murder 3 times, even though he himself didn't really commit murder, but
or whether he acknowledged
it
not.
It was one of those things. I agree. I think it was poorly written, but I see the angle they were going for. It just I think was dumb. And
the final thing too, and this was more a critique on the Christian theme, with you want to call it, because again, I don't know. I don't know if Steve Deese, is it Steve Deese or John Deese?
I think it's Steve Deese, if that's how you pronounce his last name.
I didn't know if he did this as like an evangelical type instance, or like was trying to preach the gospel in a
I haven't read the book. Yeah,
I don't know. That's the thing. And I don't know how faithful the movie is to the book.
He has another one called A Nefarious Carol. So I mean,
that's the one I've heard of before, and I think it came out. I don't know if both have been out for a while, and this is the one they chose to do. But I've heard of A Nefarious Carol.
The Nefarious Carol, I think, was more recent because it came out this is the first one. So
okay,
maybe they'll make the next one too.
I didn't like.
I mean, he's there at the end.
I thought they already did, and it was just it was unknown.
A Nefarious Carol?
Yes, and I think it was like years ago. For some reason,
I didn't think the book was that old though.
I thought it. For some reason, I feel like I've heard
so I don't know.
This title before. I may be completely wrong.
I've heard of American Carol.
Well, yeah,
that was great.
I agree, though. I'm not sure in the book, obviously, but in the film, I'm not sure.
2020 was when the Nefarious Carol.
Oh, never mind. Okay, yeah, maybe
I'm just not sure he was going for a gospel message because, like I said, I didn't feel like it delivered that very well. I felt like it.
I thought it was a little weird that even if you take it at face value of this demon trying to prove his real existence to an atheist so he can continue to be a demon.
Yeah.
Or even try to possess him. I thought the lack of understanding from I liked some of the, I guess, back and forth with him even presenting like, hey, let's assume what you're talking about is correct, and you're going to pick a fight against the God of the universe who created even you. Like, brilliant plan. Like, that was fine to go on board because, okay, that makes him logical. It doesn't necessarily make him a believer. But then there were times where the demon was even coming back with certain things, and I'm like, okay, if you're trying to make him more, like, I'll be honest with you, even when he was like cherishing and glad that the woman was about to abort her child, and I'm like,
all hell is rejoicing right now.
Well, but the thing is
like,
before that scene though, all of the things he's talking about in riling this guy up, it causes him a stir and want to go call his wife or his girlfriend and tell her not to commit the murder of their child. And it's just because he can't get through that it doesn't happen. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, so wait, the demonic guy's plan was going to be good? It actually convinced him that so I'm just sitting here and I'm like,
well, I think the demonic knew there was nothing he could do to stop it at that point.
But then,
and that's why he says it's happening. It's happening right now because he's a demon.
Well, yeah, but
he's
not omnipresent.
No, but he says that I know. I mean, he knew everything there was to know about the guy.
Well, yeah, but he also assumed you assume that it was because he researched it. And because because that's where they find all the crap in his cell and all the things that the journal he kept on the guy.
Could be,
and then he picked him for a specific reason.
I think that was to throw you off of whether he's really a demon or not, or is he a demon, or is he just really a smart guy?
And I never felt that. I never felt like the movie was really wanting me to question. Okay, was this guy? Did he have a split personality or not?
Yeah.
And that would have been a good angle to go with too.
Yeah.
They show him go back to the mentally ill person and the other personality and how he was consumed by this demon, but they don't really do a good job of making you question, okay, like, does he have a split personality? Is it really a demon? And I
feel like it's pretty straightforward. This is a demon. And I also had problems with it. It's like, I know they hint that guy wasn't exactly a great guy before the demon possessed him, but they never like really insinuated that he did anything like that he deserves to be executed for before being possessed. And that kind of bothered me too, because I'm like, granted, but still, it's like, okay, you have an innocent man then that just.
Well, and that was the point, though.
I know it was the point.
Committing the murder at the end because he signs the death warrant.
Oh, I know. Yes, I know that's the point of you just. Yeah. But
he was in there for killing people. Like, I mean, as a possessed man, but that the police don't believe he's possessed.
I know they don't.
That was his point. Okay, I'm going to take over you, and I'm going to ruin your life and get you executed.
He won. He succeeded, and that's what I just hate. That I'm just like, dang, that sucks.
Well, what I hate is like they use the argument from the demon's perspective, where he brings that up and saying, do you think the law is good or right? It's like what it's based on is moral. If you say you created a law and that's the law you're following, does that make it right? And it's funny that there's times where psychologically I know the demon's trying to use manipulation and logic to thwart the atheist, but it almost inherently kind of underpins the moral authority that you should follow, which is God's divine authority. And I was like, the demon wouldn't necessarily do that. The demon would do, I feel like, more along, and I liked this scene, and it stuck out to me because I thought it was accurate. I didn't like the actor necessarily, but I thought it was accurate to the what we fight in the culture war today. The scene where the priest walks in and he immediately, I didn't like his overreaction of, get out of here, I don't need you.
Yeah.
That was overblown. But the moment he realizes the priest is a lightweight and he's not really going to confront him, and he's going to be like, oh, no, we've evolved past all that nonsense.
Yeah.
And the demon's like, oh, I already won. I've corrupted you.
Yeah.
I'm like, you would have already have added that attitude towards the atheist, so to speak. Like, you have him in this room to quote unquote commit the murder so you can continue. But like, I didn't like the whole manifesto subplot and him trying to get his writing out there. And I'm like, why would you think somehow that this writing is going to convince people? Because it didn't even convince
the dark
atheist.
Gospel thing was kind of weird.
It was bizarre.
Yeah.
I was like, that was just like an underlying subplot that I didn't even think needed.
Yeah.
If it would have just been the demon trying to thwart the atheist and continuing to be an atheist while battling logic to get him to just continue to spread misinformation and misunderstanding of the gospel,
at that point, he already
that
was,
would have been fine.
Yeah, but he already was an atheist. So like you said, the demons in that regard had already won over his soul. And I feel like that's why they included this whole demonic gospel thing in there, was because he's like, well, we have to have a reason on why he's trying to convince this atheist that demons and God are real, because that's kind of counterintuitive to their whole goal. And I just didn't think it was a good enough excuse. It's like, so if you think if you convince him God and demons are real, he'll spread your gospel. But once you convince him God and demons are real, why would he want to spread a demonic gospel? Once he realizes hell is real, you would think he would want to not do that, which is exactly what happens, is that he does end up somewhat kind of believing something's real and changing the text. And I'm just like, I don't know. It feels like that's always... And that's why I pointed out that it would have been made more sense if the movie pointed out, we'll see, even God's work happens through
exactly.
Like, he's not going to let the demonic, like the demonic thought he was serving his own purposes, but really it ended up serving God's purposes.
I honestly thought that's the angle they were going to play when he first simply says, all right, I'm open, possess me,
take over,
and then the demon's not able to,
and nothing really came of that.
happens.
I mean, you had the scene at the end, I guess, with the gun, that he allowed to do that because he had already opened himself up for it. But I was like, that's kind of weak. I didn't think that was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
well, that was supposed to be the third murder.
No,
the third one was going to be him committing suicide.
I think the third was him signing off on
his death,
on the guy's death.
Really?
Yeah, because he killed
because it was killed the mother, the baby, and then him,
and then the innocent, because he signed off on the innocent man's death. So
yeah, you're right.
I don't know.
I agree.
That would have been more clever, though, I think, if their death would have been himself.
And it was thwarted by
I didn't mind the miraculous. Yeah, I didn't mind the divine intervention.
No, I like
the explanation of it, where they were just like, the FBI took that gun and they fired it, and it went off, like, with the same bullet.
The bullet had three strike marks.
And I'm like, okay, there's a miraculous moment done in a non-miraculous way. Like, it wasn't like light came down out of the sky and all of this stuff happened, like, and God's not dead. It's like a guy gets hit by a taxi and immediately accepts Christ as a savior. And then it's like,
very cheesy,
very bad.
Well, and I agree. I thought if it would have just been tightened up and written well, the ending scene with the Glenn Beck show,
that was
just very as like an epilogue, was just very bad. And then even like, again,
the homeless person,
the homeless person, and him giving the money too, and I'm like, one, you already know it's the setup, and two, I'm just like, you come directly out of the studio and you got a trash can and a homeless. It's like, I don't know if that's the way it really works, but I thought that was a little bit too on the nose, and like, and plus it looks like a backlot. I'm like, there's nobody else around. Why is this random
production
homeless person
value? It wasn't great.
No,
I wasn't even really convinced that they were in a prison. I thought the walls and stuff looked fake.
I agree.
And
I know
thought it looked
exactly
like
what you're talking about. It looked like a green screen.
But
and here's the thing, like, that's what kills me is, we've seen movies that have small production values that do really, really interesting creative work. And that's what kills me is, I'm like, the cinematography wasn't terrible, but it was tepid at best. I think of the movie, Rainn Wilson was in it, and it was the one that was shot
where they fall in the pit.
And he falls in the pit, and it's got the two kids that continue to visit him.
That one was decent.
That was a decent movie on you could tell it was a small budget, but they
Don't
did
Tell
a
a Soul,
great...
is that what it was called?
Yeah, I think it was.
Was it?
Tell no one or don't tell a soul. I think it was don't tell a soul.
Because he was afraid. Because his brother wouldn't let him tell anybody that the guy was down there. I think that was it. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I'll Google it.
But it was a great movie.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, look, it's worth checking out. I think if you're even curious, I'm not going to write it off as a bad movie. It is something that I wasn't compelled to. And again,
I think it's
as a believer,
if they have the time, I would say, check it out and decide for yourself.
I mean, as a Christian, it wasn't necessarily something I would watch again. I was glad to have seen it at least once, but it's nothing that convinced me to be like, oh, wow, I need to tell everyone this is a great movie. Get out there, go see it.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything like that.
It was called Don't Tell a Soul. I
Joogled
it.
All right, we got it. Let's move
let's go.
on.
Yeah, let's
get
move
on
along.
to our headlines.
Headlines.
We got some good ones. Let's talk about some headlines, guys. First one on the block is not our main topic, but we are going to talk about it right out of the gate. And that happens to be WB is looking to sell their film/TV music publishing.
Yeah, I think that's wild.
I mean, what?
Well, this is what I don't understand because they keep
$500 million in value.
Well, they also keep selling like their streaming properties to other streaming services, and it's just the whole business model keeps confusing. Because I'm like, why are you selling off things you can make money on? It's like you would want to think that you would want to drive people to HBO Max instead of selling these shows to other streaming services. And now with the music, I'm like, I don't know, because I mean Warner Brothers, as far as like their music label goes, has always been a bigger label. And it amazes me that's like you're going to sell the film and TV rights, and that's basically the soundtracks to movies and shows that they make or whatever, to someone else to earn money off of. And I'm like, why wouldn't you try to market in a way that you make more money selling the music? I don't. It really does baffle me.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's a little bit. You know, it didn't alarm me as much when I read the article. We'll have it linked in the description below. But mostly they were talking about how there are some heavy hitters in there in the catalog, but a lot of the music and from past film and TV is not something that's going to be so... They're so outdated or irrelevant.
How many people are going back to listen to I know Casablanca's on there. How many people are getting in their car?
That was actually one of the bigger
up?
ones.
That's
one that people I could see being nostalgia about. But think of how many Warner properties there are.
Oh yeah,
that from the past 100 years that don't have anything like that.
That's why
anybody would
use
even
one of the
remotely.
bigger ones, because I feel like even some of these bigger ones is still a little bit more niche. Like most people aren't listening to film soundtracks in their car. I feel like. I mean, I do, but
I
I'm
listen
a film
to Rent
buff.
all the time.
Yeah.
5,600. I don't even know the
Sweeney Todd.
numbers.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like I do understand that maybe like people aren't in general like just pulling up film and TV soundtracks to listen to unless they're big movie nerds like us. So I get the fact that maybe they don't bring a lot of money. I just feel like anytime you own something, why do you want to share that profit with other people?
Yeah.
No, well, and honestly, that's what I'm starting to realize, and this kind of touches on another headline that we have coming up here in a sec.
Mm-hmm.
I find it interesting that it's like corporations are developing the same mentality as a lot of newer generations, which is, it's in the past. What good is it? Let's move on to the new thing. And I'm like, look, if you have the only reason Disney Plus is successful is because you have a back catalog of what actually people want to see. They're not showing up to see Elemental. They're not showing up to see Lightyear. They're not showing up to see Strange World. Mm-hmm. Look, the recent developments within the past 5 years of Disney, the woke crap that they've been pumping out, have not been boosting the enthusiasm to see Disney. It's the older stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think it comes to the same deal when talking about Warner or Paramount, you wouldn't even have streaming services without these companies at least having some kind of back catalog
Paramount
to offer.
Is doing the same thing. I was reading there where they canceled a bunch of shows for Paramount Plus recently, and one of them was Star Trek Prodigy, which had a season 1. It was renewed for season 2. They're actually in post-production, and then they decided to go ahead and cancel it. But they're going to go ahead and shop it around to other streaming services. And I'm like, why? If it's already in post-production and you're going to shop it around to other services, just put it on Paramount Plus. You already own it. I don't understand this whole...
and that's the other thing, too, is I could just see... why not think outside the box to a degree and say... yeah, let's add it as another feature. Even if it's you could even try it out first and just add it and just stream it, see how popular it gets. And then if it actually drums up enough support and popularity from a user base, then maybe start saying, all right, well, now it's $1 to tack on to your subscription you already have.
For music
maybe
or whatnot.
$2 or $3 to just add on separately if that's all you want. I mean, I just don't understand why not use this to your advantage and use the things that you've already created and own and pay respect to it and create, a catalog that film lovers, maybe there's film lovers out there who probably don't even know some of this stuff exists or never even thought about it. And then it's not until it's presented to them and maybe in a nice, neat packaged way because you actually are showing that you love the things you've created and you've put out there, but actually giving them a reason to revisit it or to visit it at all if they never have.
Yeah. Well, I know, like they mentioned some of the soundtracks to the Batman movies. I'm like, I know Batman's huge. You're telling me you can't find that you can't have just as much success selling that music or streaming that music as another company? Like, I don't believe that.
I don't either. I'm baffled because I feel like I think what's happening is a lot of these corporate companies are getting so big, they're finding ways to cut costs. Mm-hmm. And I think early on, and I don't know, I'm not saying this like I have a crystal ball, but I feel like some of the decisions that are being made are they're cutting off their nose to spite their face. Mm. And they're getting rid of things that they could have value in, but they're not really creatively thinking of a way to maximize that value for themselves or maximize those profits and those revenues. And I ultimately think they're trying to find quick ways to make cash to try to boost their efforts of moving forward in whatever new ventures they have on the horizon. And ultimately, at the end of the day, those are not foolproof methods. Mm. And neither is this, but at least, like you said, with the who was it that has the series already in post-production?
Oh, Paramount. That's a series that already aired on Paramount Plus for its first season.
So I'm like, you already have the goods.
Yeah.
Find a way to make money off of it. I mean, it's the same thing as like, and honestly, this is what they're thinking. They're thinking we're selling it, and I'm like, okay, well that's gonna give you money up front right now. Mm-hmm. But what happens if the new venture you're working on isn't gonna pay any dues and they
already canceled it. It's like, just release. You already got canceled it. You're not going to make more. Just go ahead and release the second season on the platform it premiered on.
I mean, I guess if there's anything to be said about this, the one good thing is it's not like they're just shelving it and never allowing it to be seen by the masses.
It's not like Batgirl with Warner Brothers. They just said and pulled it entirely.
No, like, don't even put this out there in the ether. I mean, I get
how bad was that? Look at the movie, like the flops they've had. It's like, and even James Gunn said it wasn't releasable. He was like, yeah, it was bad. So I'm like, okay, none of the Black Adam, Shazam, The Flash, none of those movies made money. So how terrible was Batgirl?
After The Flash, how many are going to argue that James Gunn has no idea what he's talking about? We release it. We need to see it.
Yeah,
I want to see it just because I want to see how bad it is.
But the thing is, there's not like a lot of people. I mean, it has some mixed reviews, critics wise, but audiences are taking to The Flash.
Agreed.
But to be fair,
but you got to show up.
Yeah, they're not. So it's like, okay, all these great audience score on Rotten Tomatoes are literally the only people that went and saw the movie.
Yeah,
because they're not. Yeah, they're not.
Well, and the best way to compare that would be to look at the ratio of how many people actually reviewed it, who were audience members versus those who went and seen The Little Mermaid.
Warner Brothers is just chugging along right now thinking, well, these movies may not do well, but we're really waiting for James Gunn's universe to begin. And like, that's fine, but if none of these movies can win people back to DC before James Gunn's universe begins, are they going to show up for him? Like, is his name enough to draw everybody to say, all right, we know this is the first one he's been involved with, let's go.
You better believe they're going to be asking that when Blue Beetle flops.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, some people are saying, oh, there's a lot of Cobra Kai fans out there. And look,
I've seen that too. And I'm like, I don't think there's enough Cobra Kai fans to make Blue Beetle a hit.
Just think that nobody knows who the hell Blue Beetle is.
Nope.
And if you didn't care about The Flash, you're not going to care about him. It's just another dumb superhero film. That's what most are going to see. And you know that, yes, they have got to be pinching their cheeks right now because they're thinking, oh, shoot, did we just buy a ticket on the Titanic? Mm-hmm. No pun intended from what just happened.
Wow. You're such a jerk.
Too soon. Sorry,
Netflix is apparently they got the rights to stream that movie again, Titanic. And
yeah,
it's supposed to come out,
I think
July
1st.
Yeah, and people are mad at Netflix. I'm like, look, they can't
supply and demand.
Yeah.
They're like, that's kind of like inconsiderate with what just happened. I'm like, it's not their fault it happened right, but like they have the rights. You think they're just supposed to sit on it and not put it back on their platform? Like, no. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's disingenuous. Look, I'll be one of those that yes, I think it's wrong. But also, I'm like,
it's not like they're doing.
They
it
know people are going to watch it.
But I don't feel like they're doing that.
Because all the people who are complaining about how wrong it is are going to tune in day one and watch it.
But I don't think Netflix is like, let's intentionally put this on here because this just happened. That just happens to be when they got the rights.
Oh, hell yeah, they are. They know Titanic is in the headlines.
Oh, I know, but
and they know that people are searching
these deals
feverishly for their Titanic fix.
Like the deal would have happened before this ever sank. So I don't think like I said, I'm just saying the deal would have happened before what happened with the Titans. So I feel like I mean it's opportunistic for them, like, oh, we lucked out, but I think they would have had it set for July 1st, whether this happened or not.
Yeah,
so,
no, I agree. I agree.
Well, even this other article I was just reading said that the deal with Warner Brothers is 5 months old, and initially it was over $1 billion that they were going to sell the TV and film music to.
And nobody would buy it for $1 billion?
No, and now it's down to $500 million.
Why does somebody else want to spend $1 billion for it?
Well, that's why Sony is right now. It's looking like the lead prospect, and I mean $500 million, especially if it was on the market going up for sale for $1 billion.
That makes sense too, though, because Sony does have a massive record label that they would like. Oh, we'll take that.
Yeah, but it says Warner Brothers is trying to push this. They're trying to cut costs. And this is all music and film and TV themes that aren't selling, so they're going to sell it to somebody else. And it basically says whoever ends up buying this is going to have a challenge trying to sell it themselves. So it's not a very good deal for whoever does make the purchase.
I mean, unless you have a service that you can either subscribe it out to. I mean, that's the thing. Like, what if Sony buys
has
it up?
Spotify, right? They can just throw them on there. Do they not own Spotify? I thought they did.
No, I think Spotify's independently owned. But I think, Sony could easily license it to Spotify and Apple Music and all these other streaming services to. And here's the thing: they may say, "Well, that's what Warner Brothers is already doing, and you can go find these on there." But to me, it's all in delivery. Mm-hmm. There may be a ton in that catalog, but if they sell the rights, what I want to know is, are these like rotating, like, or do they? Because again, how is it hurting Warner Brothers' pocketbook? If I can understand if they're paying for them to be on streaming services and nobody's streaming it,
then stop
doing it. But
why
why would you sell stuff that eventually could become marketable in some way? You just want to get rid of it to again
stop offering it for streaming and only sell it I have it available for purchase, and maybe nobody buys it for purchase, but you're still making more money that way than having it on streaming. I don't know. The best cost-cutting news I've heard all day was Disney canceling Josh Gad's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
There you go. Absolutely.
So, I mean, no offense. I mean, I love Rick Moranis, but I was just like, Josh Gad attached is going to be awful. Yep. So
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And also Netflix cutting. We just talked
about
the
$10 tier.
Talking about cutting the $10 tier.
I feel like that was a superfluous tier anyways. I'm like, who's really like, if you're saving money, you're probably going to do the $6 ad tier. And if you don't want that tier because it doesn't have like the simultaneous streams
or
and
HD.
You're not going to go with the $10 tier because it still doesn't have streams in HD. Yeah. You don't have either of those options. I just
what
feel
was
like
the $10 tier?
It was literally $7.40 like the ad tier without ads. It was the same exact thing as the ad tier. It just didn't have
720p,
ads.
no ads.
Yeah.
And it was still like only one stream at a time.
Yeah, there was no simultaneous stream.
You know what that is too?
No downloads.
That's also them saying we make more off of the ad version.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're paying not only to receive ads, but then they're going to make more money from the ads.
It's like, look, you're going to either get people going for the ad tier where you're making more money, or they're going to go for the two more expensive tiers where they're making money. So honestly, I think that's a smarter business move than charging people extra money to share their password. Yeah. So I wish they would do more stuff like that to save costs than the other dumbass things they're doing.
Well, but it's working.
It ain't dumb because it worked. Yeah.
No, it's working. It's true. That's true.
As much as they're in the hole, it's like they got Titanic and they know how to freaking get money out of people's pockets.
Yeah.
By keeping them subscribing.
Keeping it afloat.
Love it. Let's move on to our final headline, which happens to be
the word
AI being used for secret invasion.
People are not cool with this. And I'm like,
I don't understand it. Like It's the opening.
Yeah,
like it's not.
And it does fit the tone of what I still haven't watched the show, but I know the comic story. It fits the tone of what that story's supposed to be. So I'm like, okay, I get it.
I come
That's
down
fine.
on both sides.
Yeah.
I've not seen the show.
Yeah.
I don't plan on watching it. Because, like I said, I have disdain for Marvel. They've really got
I enjoyed
one
the
out
first episode.
and that's fine. I'm probably never going to watch
I've not
another
been
Marvel.
spurred by the shows other than She-Hulk, and I mean, Miss Marvel wasn't bad. It was just bland.
I just
so.
do not care about don't care about Marvel at this point.
Yeah.
Do not care.
I just
but ultimately, so again, I don't have a dog in this fight.
yeah.
I understand why people are upset for all the reasons we've talked about AI being problematic in
they
the
think
past.
just taking jobs away from people that could have made the opening.
Well,
themselves.
especially when you've got the writer strike going on, you know that a hot button issue within the writer strike is people using AI to write scripts. But also, I still think it's interesting because, like you all have just alluded to, the very content of the film or of the TV show and the context in which it's being used.
It's supposed to be one of
I
suspicion
thought
and paranoia.
was a creative way of. It's been the only justifiable reason.
Yeah.
The same way I'm expecting NCIS or CSI and all these other crime shows to have some kind of AI themed litany of episodes in the next several seasons.
Well, we've already seen, I think, some movie coming out about AI, and I'm just like, this is where Hollywood's going. They're
Yeah.
so terrified.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll stop making woke movies because they're so terrified
Well, it's
of
like
AI.
they've moved
that's what
on
they're
from
gonna-
global warming movies, and now it's AI.
Hey, I'm okay
but
with
here's
that.
the thing.
Yeah.
I think there's a more of a worthy threat there to be
Yeah.
worried about.
Yeah.
yeah.
But
no
it's
joke.
still interesting that I saw people like commenting, and they use a couple of comments again. The link will be in the description below. But in the thread, they were talking about like so many were like, "Oh, I watched it and it was ugly," and then I looked up and sure enough, it was AI generated. And I'm like, okay, for one, I don't think a single person who's touting that they actually thought it was AI generated really believed it until after they looked it up
Yeah,
and saw
I
that it
didn't know.
was. And then two,
I couldn't tell. So
I
don't know.
think so much of this is it's like, yeah, it looked ugly on purpose. It was kind of supposed to be this weird uncanny valley of what is real and what isn't. I mean, again, I haven't even seen the show. I know what the essence of it is, the premise. So I'm like, okay, well, it seemed like they got the right effect. One, you're talking about it, and two, the whole what is it, what's real, what's not. I kind of understand what they were doing with it. And again, I'm not saying that of all the bad talk that I've had or questionable talk of AI and moving forward that I've talked about on the show, I still think this was creatively done and creatively approached.
And they said, granted, I know with it being AI, it was probably a lot less people involved than you would typically need. But they did like they used Method Studios. Like they said, that it wasn't like they just put it into the AI and that was it. They still had people, that went over
well,
it.
what
and
I thought was
yeah.
weird is the way they phrase it in the article is they just say AI vendors.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, Chat GPT.
Yeah.
There's another one that a guy at work was showing me. And you buy like credits and you get like 20 based on how many credits you buy, you can get like 20 generated images based on prompts, and like you can get it in and even regenerate for certain amount of times for free.
He said they and yeah.
But it's just weird because I'm like they're popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
They're all these different I mean, it is like a new. So when they said AI vendors, I totally believed it, but I thought it was funny that I'm like, there's already freaking art houses that are just popping up with the back end of saying, no, we're going to provide this service. And who knows how the hell the machine learning is going on behind the scenes.
I mean, I
what
totally...
infrastructure are they using? That's the scary part.
I totally get the fear of it replacing jobs, but that's also when they built the assembly line, any
True
innovation forward, jobs change. And I know that does suck for the people who have spent their whole years in a certain career. And I mean, I don't want to see anybody out of a job, but at the same time, I think using it in this regard is a creative way to help aid different people. Now, if they made the whole episode with AI, obviously that'd be a problem because
if things were written, I mean, it's art. Like, I mean, we've talked about this before, we've even disagreed on it, but if you watch the opening, it's literally just images.
Yeah.
It's all and everything in it looks kind of like
morphing.
Well, it looks like oil paintings or something.
I immediately thought of is it Van Gogh that does Starry Night? And the face with the what is that? The Scream? I think it's called the Scream.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. That was just
I mean, it just looks like a moving
yeah.
painting is all it looks like to me. To me the bigger thing is like it's funny because like this is from Marvel, Disney touted this whole new technology with the Mandalorian what's his name, Favreau was did like a behind the scenes episode of how they're going to do the backgrounds and stuff.
And
they're
a lot
like,
of
we don't
other
even have
places
to
use
go to
that now.
locations anymore. They can do these unreal, I mean, just absolutely realistic locations by using 3-dimensional green screen and all these new effects and stuff. And it's like, so
it's just a
what's the
giant
difference though?
LED wall.
Yeah, I'm just saying you're
With
taking money away
NVIDIA.
from New Zealand. That it'd be think if Peter Jackson shot Lord of the Rings like that and didn't go to
because-
New Zealand and shoot, like that takes away
But here's the thing.
tourism, everything.
I agree, but I also think you can tell, even an average viewer subconsciously can tell, there's a difference between, because here's the thing, we know that there's several shots in Lord of the Rings that are shot on a back lot,
Yeah.
where they make it
Yeah.
look like a forest, but there's still scenes of the sweeping shots of far away, and they're zooming in on them running across the landscape, and it's like, those are one of a kind shots you can't fake.
Yeah.
You see it and you know it's real.
True.
And even within The Mandalorian, the only reason they're pulled off is because even if they're computer generated, they're based off, again, real life atmospheres. And even if they've been baked and put into a, Unreal Engine 5 and morphed and created however you need it to be, you still have a sense of this is tight, defined space. I mean, the closest it comes to maybe is when he's in the desert plain on, forget the planet in the second season, before he meets Boba Fett.
He would have been Tatooine, wouldn't it? He's
Tatooine.
there a lot.
Tatooine.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's like that was the one time where I saw it maybe juxtaposed against the background where I was like, okay, this does make it look like he's in a wide open
I mean,
desert.
it's impressive
Yeah.
technology,
Yeah.
and more companies have, like, because it's not the only series now that has used it. I
Right.
think a few movies have actually even implemented it in certain things. So,
But I'm just saying, what's the difference? That's taking all kinds of jobs away from people who would
I
be
guess 'cause
working
you still
on
need
location.
a lot of
and
people to
I
set
know,
that up
but
too. It's a
not
different
the same people.
Yeah, it's different
Yeah.
jobs. But I guess their fears with AI, like that, you shift the jobs from like production designers who are setting up things in a real environment to people working on technology. With AI, I think their fear is it's just one person typing something in a computer, and you eliminate way more jobs that way.
Yeah.
I mean, but I also like that in the article it mentions, and we've talked about this on the show before. And again, I'm not really a proponent of AI to a degree. I think it's interesting. It's something that I think needs to be very carefully considered before just
definitely.
delving into. But I will say that one person on there even wrote, he was like, look, I mean, a real artist is going to find a way to manipulate even something AI generates. And because again, AI is generating things based on real world tangible items that it sees as, oh, this is what you as a human will recognize.
What it's been programmed to,
These parameters have been set and put in place by humans to, here is what is reality. Now, what is creative is that this could become a new art form that we see popping up, such as in Secret Invasion. It's like, how do we slowly work in AI that it's not only consumable and approachable by normal consumers, but I can already see, people using an AI-generated character throughout a movie and a real human and real people interacting with this AI-generated character. And you may say, well, that's preposterous too. Like, that's crazy. And it's like, what's the difference between them interacting with it versus, okay, there was a real person in, like Jar Jar Binks' costume, and they were just looking up at a fake head, and then they CGI'd him out. But I'm like, okay, but they still took a person's performance, unless the person or the AI-generated character doesn't speak. Like, there's still going to have to be some kind of tangible thing there for the person, a live action.
didn't generate dialogue and speech.
Well, no, that'll be interesting too.
One day.
A
It doesn't
whole
do it realistically
entire.
now.
I just think it's interesting to see what you put into the computer, what it spits out, and you as a human find it uncanny. But does it also create this weird art form that can become something that fills both worlds? It's like, okay, we don't really necessarily trust this, and it's definitely fake, but it's fake in a way that can be artistic, and we can now use it to a creative way of pushing the medium forward into what most people are considering uncharted territory and completely something they shouldn't, that should be hands off. I mean, you could approach any new technology that way. And I think you just got to be smart about it. You got to be wise. It terrifies me to no end. But
I mean, we don't really know the extent of what it could lead to yet. That's
Right.
why I think we should be cautious. Because but In this instance, I didn't really have a huge problem with it. I understand the fears, and I don't think those fears are illegitimate because definitely there's the concern of replacing workers, but I don't know. I think there is still a lot of overreaction too. I think we just need to be cautious, like you said.
Yeah, so one of the comments was like, as soon as I found out this was AI generated, I binned the show immediately. And I'm like, why? Samuel L. Jackson he gives a good performance in the first episode alone, and I'm just like, so you're not going to watch his new show that he's worked hard on?
No, because he's okay with AI.
Yeah, but he may not have any say at all.
I'm sure he didn't.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like, at least they did it for the opening credits and not anything actually in the show.
If you want to take it to that kind of extent, and again, I'm not interested in it for other reasons because it's Marvel.
Yeah, right.
But it's like, if you want to take it to that ridiculous degree, it's like, how many movies have you watched with full CG characters? And it's like, well, they're taking away from the performance of the actor. It's like, but and you could even argue
Avatar.
They're still
Avatar's mocapped.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah,
it's like, could you really argue that? I mean, well, and even what did they say? James Cameron gets pissed. He doesn't call it motion capture. He calls it motion performance.
Oh yeah, because it's still.
I mean, they're doing a full.
Yeah,
I mean, they're doing the full thing. Yeah,
he had them actually get in water and go underwater and stuff. So I'm like,
but you could even argue that while the animation or the character or whatever is computer generated, you could say, well, there was a human that input the text. There was a creative vision that took place, and they altered it enough. It's like, are you now saying that person? Trust me, I get it. I know I'm kind of mixing.
Oh no, yeah, it's
comparing apples and oranges.
No, I mean I get it too.
But I think when you start to be that petty and that picky, and you don't take into consideration what the context is of why this was used, it's not like they're moving forward saying, all of our shows now are going to have AI-generated intros. And I get that it opens a scary door. But until that happens, there's no reason for a huge backlash. I get, people get their
I mean, really, the backlash or even the questioning is exactly what they were going for. The whole point was
discussing it.
Well, the whole point was nobody knows who's real and who's not.
Yeah.
So it's like the whole opening of the show, it's kind of like, is that AI-generated or is that artist created? Like, what it brought the question, and people are asking it, and it's like, that's exactly what they were going for.
And honestly, there was somebody who I think had posted a video alongside that intro with their own user, like they created their own fan intro, and I did see, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched parts of both, and his whole point was, and he tweeted it out, and he just wrote, he said, you can tell which one of these is actually created from love for the material versus AI generated. He's like, sorry to say, he's like, you still need real artists. And I was like, bravo. Like, you proved your point right there. Like, I can still see them going with the method they chose for, again, the reason being that, it's the story of the show of what's real, what's not. I totally understand that. So I still think they would have went with it, but it proves to you, exactly. It's like, this is not, I understand people's fears behind it, but it's not changing overnight, and you have time to adapt or die.
Yeah.
And you have to consider it in that you're in that realm now. It's coming. It's already here. We got to figure out how to use it.
No duh.
Alrighty, let's move on to our final topic.
No, it's like no duh, but no duh instead of no duh, just no duh. I guess
that's Star Wars. But
no,
Disney.
no, duh.
Well, here go. You're about to use your favorite one.
Uh-oh.
Here's our intro.
Let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and the moon up above and a thing called love.
Oh, I just want to throw you off.
Wow.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, it's different.
He didn't use it.
There it is.
That's it.
There it is.
There we go. Well, there it is. There it is. You
Okay.
should have used. No, it wouldn't.
I wanted to be unexpected,
And
then I decided to do what was expected.
did.
as you always
Nobody
are.
knows. I'm worse than AI. You
That's
never
right.
know.
AI could not have generated what you just did.
I feel like AI, machine learning, would be hooked up to Keith, and they'd be like, "What the hell is this?"
It would
That's
break.
right.
Cannot compute.
Yeah.
Cannot compute.
The whole computer would fry. It'd be like, there's no logic here.
Nope. like ones and zeros, and then all of a sudden it just starts doing twos. Like, just breaks binary completely.
I'm the secret weapon against Skynet.
Yes.
It's like out of
It's like we
nowhere.
need to take the Terminators
It's like
out.
we need to
Keep
plug
the-
Keith into the USB.
The Matrix would have been ended in a day.
That would have been great.
Like, all we got to do is get Keith to the mainframe.
That's it. X-Files music. Alrighty, guys. Let's talk about relationships because we got the 4th of July holiday coming up.
We do.
We always
We won't
talk
be here.
about. No, we won't be here next week.
No.
Shout out again. We will not be here.
Indiana
next week.
Jones will be.
It will. We'll have a review next week, but no show.
No show.
We'll have our review and our discussion after. Well, we probably won't ever discuss it because I mean we'll have Mission
Unless-
Impossible. We'll
Only
have
discussions.
Unless
Oppenheimer.
Indiana
Yeah.
Jones blows our mind, I don't.
True. True.
Like we watch it, we're like we have to discuss
Yeah, we
this.
got to talk about this.
And it could blow our mind in completely unexpected ways, worse than the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I just
Time
think it's
will
gonna be
tell.
milquetoast. Like I don't think
Yeah.
it's gonna be as bad as Kingdom.
It's
I
funny.
just think
It's funny
gonna
how
be-
the critics and media, everything, they're already getting ready for the movie to be bad because there's I've read multiple articles where people have said the headlines are even like, here's 8 reasons why Kingdom of the Crystal Skull wasn't the worst Indiana Jones film and all
Wow.
this stuff, and I'm like, okay, you're taking the absolute hot garbage movie and trying to make it sound good before this new one comes out so that it ain't as bad as it's gonna be.
We ran a report today that was literally a guy talking about. They were supposed to promote this film, so I understand why he was being a little tepid. But of course, he was just talking about how, oh yeah, people are really excited to see Indiana Jones again, and and Phoebe, blah blah blah. She does a pretty good job of taking on the action. But it was just funny how he was tiptoeing around. I was like, okay, even if you gave it a positive review, it's like, were you contacted by Disney to be like, hey, don't mess this up. We need butts in seats.
Yeah.
And it's like, and here's some money. We'll tout your article.
Honestly, I think it'll be telling to see what that does at the box office because you better believe Disney's hoping Indiana Jones makes
Dude.
bank.
Yeah.
And
And it's
if
going
it, if it has a Flash-like release,
It's an IP that nobody knows about today. Like, I'm just saying,
I wouldn't
I
say
just don't think
that.
there's not young people don't know who Indiana Jones is.
Well, and I would blame that on the fact that they've gone away from what Indiana
Well,
Jones
that's
is.
true.
Yeah.
But I mean, when was Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? That was in
2006?
yeah,
it was
Maybe
20 years ago
2004?
almost.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I don't think there's a lot of people. There's people our age that know who Indiana Jones is, but if
and
you're
the
20, you
people
don't
our
know who
age
Indiana
aren't really
Jones
looking
is.
forward to it. So 2008.
2008.
Crystal Skull.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, I look, and it was. Man.
Yeah, it's awful.
But which we're gonna get into a relationship segment.
Yeah,
we'll
let's
talk.
do that.
We'll discuss Indiana Jones on a further date.
Yeah.
All right, our topic, because we always talk about what'd you do on the 4th of July, or were you spending that time with?
shooting fireworks, eating burgers,
That's what everybody
Bring a
should be
beer.
doing.
Yep.
With the American flag,
America.
baby.
beer, burgers, blowing crap up. It's
You
America.
Always. That's what we do best.
Yeah.
Do you always spend holidays with family? That's what the question I want to throw out there is.
family. That's from James and the Giant Peach. Not always.
I thought it'd be funny if we didn't answer.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know.
I just wanted to sing.
Well,
No,
there it is.
Generally, most holidays, yes, are spent with family. Like obviously, big ones like Christmas,
Yeah,
Thanksgiving, Easter. But yeah, there are holidays like.
What if you're an orphan?
Well, then you're just crap out of luck. Sorry, shouldn't have been an orphan.
Spend it alone.
I like to blame.
Shouldn't
You know,
have been an orphan.
I like to victim blame. I like victim blame. It's your fault. Anyways, no.
This is America. Pull yourself up from
So
your big
right.
straps.
for
You
the
have a
actual
choice.
for the actual 4th, yes, I'll be with my family on the day. My parents pretty much do every holiday on the holiday. There's
Yeah.
not really, but like okay, Halloween, like I'll go trick or treating with like my sister and her kids because it's just fun, and my mom always makes chili. But generally, like which is still I guess family, but there's also several friends involved. But my niece and nephew always have a Halloween party every year. So it's more than family, and I do that every year, and it's always fun. And then for the 4th, our good friends Jacob and Melissa, they do something every year, and it's kind of become a tradition now because it's not something that I guess I ever saw myself doing. But yeah, every year now I do go visit them whenever they do their thing because it's always a lot of fun. They bring people over. They usually always do fireworks. So yeah, I do have some holidays. I guess I would say it depends on the holiday that definitely the more family-oriented ones. I want to be with my family, but you can have fun celebrating things with friends.
Yeah. I looked at it more like, okay, do you spend it intimately or do you spend it publicly? Because I know, like, just for instance, with 4th of July, like, we're having, like, our neighborhood, there's people in one of the cul-de-sacs that are, like, they're going to do a firework thing.
Oh, that's cool.
And they're grilling hot dogs and burgers and stuff. So it's like, hey, bring the family, come down here.
I think 4th of July is a great neighborhood
people
holiday,
we don't
too.
actually,
perfect
we
time
don't
for
know.
it. Yeah.
But it's like, we still usually just hang out with the family and not go down the street to their thing.
Well, you
We
can still
did
see
it
the
one
fireworks
time
from
and
your
it
house.
was fine. But it was like, yeah, exactly.
Or hey, even
But-
if you just stop by, get a burger and leave.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
go
Like,
down
hey,
there
I
and
would
get
take
free
your
stuff and
food.
go.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect holiday for
Churches
that. I mean,
have get-togethers and
that-
stuff,
yep.
but it's still I would rather spend it with the family.
I think
than,
Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day. Those are holidays that definitely I want to spend with my family, but they're also good holidays
celebrate
that
the American spirit.
that if you
Yeah,
are
true.
close to your neighbors and you have a good friendly relationship with your neighborhood, those are, I think, holidays that, like, neighborhood cookouts are perfectly fun. Yeah,
I would agree. I mean, to
I don't
me,
want my neighbors at Thanksgiving, but that's okay.
unless you don't have any
No,
family,
I like
and,
being alone.
and all you have are neighbors.
orphans still have neighbors. Yeah,
Yeah, orphans have neighbors.
Of
maybe.
course.
I mean, I don't know.
Who
Depends on
knows?
I don't know. Are they homeless orphans or are they are well off orphans?
They're homeless orphans.
So then they have nobody.
They have the. Well, I don't want to go there. I don't know where I was. Going
I don't know where you're going either. It might be
You could
best
go
to
a
leave
lot
it
of
that way.
places.
I was gonna say I don't know where that was going in general, but
What'd you do?
but no, I would say it depends on the holiday, no doubt. I mean, there's certain ones that I'm just like
You're not gonna go spend Christmas with your neighbors.
No. I mean, well, and it's like I agree with what Keith was saying about the 4th. I mean, to me, there are certain ones you celebrate with the public. I mean, Memorial Day is a perfect example of that. Heck, there's some that's like Labor Day. I'm like, no, I just want to enjoy the day
Yeah.
and take it off and not do anything. But usually it's also like the last day that my parents' pool is open, so we just go over there and have like
Yeah.
a pool party. But no, I tend to stick with family because usually someone, whether it's, it's great when you have a bigger family that you can have, different responsibilities doled out to each one for a different holiday. Like I know this year, for instance, it used to be my brother and sister-in-law would have a 4th of July get together. They're actually going to Ohio this year.
Wow, traitors.
To spend it with her cousin Molly and her aunt Molly, or Aunt Marion and her cousin Molly. And it's like because they just had a baby last year, and it's like it's easier for them to commute up there than for them to bring everybody down here. So it's like, okay, so we're not doing a 4th of July celebration over there. And then for me, it's like, I'm stuck working. I get some good holiday pay though. But it's like it is one of those things where typically when that happens, where it's like there's a break in the typical, standard, this is what we plan on doing.
Yeah.
It's in kind of like well, what do we do? Because nobody's planned for this to be the case, because normally, we've got this
You have
holiday.
to spend your holiday like an orphan.
Or yeah, exactly. Nobody loves you. It's like that's the way it is. But no, they what was it? Then there's also times too where when you do have a bigger family and you have in-laws, you have to, share with them the holidays. So it's like I said, they're like my brother and sister-in-law are going up to Ohio. I know for Christmas it used to be like that in terms of rotation. My parents would have it one year, and then other years it would be like Chip and Wendy and Amber and Jeff would go off to their respective in-laws' families and spend it down in those
It
homes.
just occurred to me, and
Yeah.
I'm going to give this person a shout out because she's watching. Like, I used to work with her, Sandy. Hi, Sandy. But we used to, like, actually, we worked together at Bob Evans, but doing stuff with work people, because we always had holiday.
Yeah.
We always did Christmas parties and stuff, and where all the employees got together, and we would do like a dirty Santa and things like that. And I honestly wouldn't have thought of that if she hadn't have commented. So that's but yeah, there's certain things that you even do with I guess your work family, if you consider them such, or work friends. Because I've always did enjoy those Christmas parties, because we were more close knit at that job, where like we were
Yes.
friends with each other, and the Dirty Santa games were always hilarious because we knew each other well enough that we could get different gag gifts and different stuff. So yeah, that's another like that I didn't even think of. I mean, you have friends and family, but I mean, some people celebrate things, with their employer.
Well, I
and
mean, it's weird. Because,
sometimes it's not fun. In that case, I did have a lot of fun on those instances.
and I totally understand when people don't have, maybe close tits.
Close tits?
tit.
Wow.
Well,
yeah, some people
I
have
like
close
them. I like
tits.
them spread apart a little bit.
Mine are a little far apart.
Wow.
And he's not even
I
been
like it.
drinking.
No.
He's had water.
I haven't been drinking. I've just been up for a long time.
He's just got
today.
tits on his mind. That's what it is.
You know what Brandon thinks about? Tits and orphans.
Close tits.
Close tits.
Close knit group of friends
Oh,
at
okay.
work.
It would have been great if you would have said nips after that. Like close tit. I mean, close nip. I mean,
close tit nips.
I just want boobies.
It's like, what is it?
I like boobs.
like what's Brandon going to do when we leave?
Instead of I like beards, I like boobs.
I like boobs.
Like
I like them close.
Chris is they're hotter than they are, hotter than they
Yeah.
are.
You sound like
Closer the better,
Clark
is
Griswold
probably
in the Christmas Vacation.
Yep.
Wow.
It's a bit,
Okay.
a bit nipply. Did I
But
say
no-
nipply?
What am I trying to say? Nipple?
I love that movie so much.
It's such a great movie.
Yep.
Oh.
But
Well-
no, I to me, when you do have a close knit family group at work, because some people don't get that, or even like I know my parents grew up in a generation where they were like, no, keep work at work, and your family's at home, and I still understand that to a certain degree, but I think it's like you spend how many hours a day with these people?
Yeah.
If you can form some kind of bond to the point where you can,
Unless you work from home.
well, then you're just alone. You're like an orphan. You're just alone.
My coworkers are trying to plan a dinner this month, and I thought that was really cool. But we're going to be at the lake, so I'm like, well, sorry guys, I'm
Yeah.
not joining.
Well, I'd
I'd rather be there.
And it almost always happens around the holidays. One group of friends that I really connected with was when I worked at JCPS, and we had in the testing unit, we always went out to Cracker Barrel the week of Thanksgiving, and it was just our way to share with each other what we were thankful
Rick
for.
really used to like Cracker
But-
Barrel on Thanksgiving.
Who?
Rick? Didn't Rick single? I don't know if they went
We
on
still
Thanksgiving
go
or
on
do you still go on
Thanksgiving
Thanksgiving?
sometimes,
Okay.
Yeah, I done some,
Or right around Thanksgiving.
Look,
Yeah.
people can knock it all they want. I like
Oh
Cracker
no,
Barrel.
Cracker Barrel's
It's
good.
food. I'm just saying.
I just on Thanksgiving I
Yeah.
enjoy.
no homemade.
but that's
food
because I
is
still
just
go
the
to
best.
my mom's and everything. So
Right.
I mean I love that. But I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
my mom makes bomb.
Mommy's the best.
Mommy's the
Mom's
best.
Thanksgiving food. But no, I do. I mean, that was just one memory that I have tons of memories of the years that we went. And we tried to make it a traditional annual thing. And we even now still do. It's harder because we all don't work there anymore. And it's, ever since COVID, it kind of broke the chain. And we just haven't been able to get back into it. But it was like, you do form that bond with people you work beside day in and day out for hours at a time. It's like, of course you're going to grow close with them. And it's good to and honestly, you may be filling a void in their life that they don't have. They may be an orphan, and
Yeah, they could have close tits.
close
too.
tits.
I haven't honestly
Titty baby.
another
it
holiday
redefines the word.
Yes, your mom still denies that, doesn't she?
She does.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
still denies
I
it.
say
Denies
New Year's-
what?
She called me titty baby one time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
She said, I never called you
He
that."
swears this,
Yeah.
but she swears she didn't. So.
Everybody's mom
She's-
called them that.
She is going to be
once.
Titty
pissed
baby?
if she
Yeah.
ever realizes that I brought this up on
Up
the
on,
show.
well,
She went, you take that back. I never called you that.
we were talking about
Yes,
all
you
these
did.
other holidays, but New Year's is another one I tend to not spend with family. I actually usually we get together as friends, so that's another one that my parents aren't going to be up all night. They just like nice quiet night. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm looking forward to a nice quiet night too.
you
Because
can
I'm
have
going to be
that.
in bed.
That's like orphans.
Actually, it won't
have
happen.
quiet nights all the time.
Because honestly, I'm shocked. I have not heard near the number of fireworks leading up to the 4th of July that I
Yeah.
thought.
I have not.
That's because they're expensive.
But I'm a little
Inflation.
depressed. I hated it, but I love that people just shot them off throughout. Literally, there was a
Like
1
the whole
month
month
window.
of June
Yeah.
for a while,
Yes.
and maybe
Yeah.
Juneteenth has part of that, I guess. But it was one of those things that, this year I did like the last 2 years from almost the beginning of June until the end of July, there were fireworks, and I agree. I was like,
I just
There's
don't
not been
hear
as
them
many.
as much
No.
anymore.
Yeah.
I've honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't heard any.
Liberty's dead.
maybe everybody's too poor.
They've made liberty too expensive.
Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Talk about that for taxation without
And I
representation.
mean, they're all made in China, so they're supposed to be cheap.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's where I
just
got
don't
those
get it.
Switch controllers.
You don't
and they
get
were $3.
American-made fireworks anywhere. They're all made in China.
Zambelli, man. Thunder over Louisville. Although they may be a Chinese
I bet
company
they
at
are.
this point, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But no, it is. It's disappointing because I used to hear, again, I always enjoyed and I didn't enjoy it in the moment, but I was like, oh, they're off at it again.
Yep.
And then you get online, and then I would also roll my eyes at the Karens who were all complaining, I got to get up and work in the morning. Everybody's shooting off these fireworks. Let's be respectful. And I'm just like, come on. Like, shut up. It's like nobody's going to. You
Here's
say
the
that,
thing.
and then people are going to go out and light off 10 times more.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
If their budget
if
allows.
you got to work in the morning, then get your ass off Facebook.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
When it comes to the
Take
night,
some NyQuil
Get off
and get
Facebook.
the hell
when
out.
it comes
Yeah,
to the
that's
night of the
right.
4th, I fully agree. Like when it's actually the 4th of July, you can't complain about
No.
people being. Now I
No.
understand when it's like 2 weeks later and people are still shooting fireworks at 2 a.m. Yeah, at that point it's like
Then
stop it.
complain.
Yeah, at that
Then
point
complain.
it's dumb. So
Give them a 2-week leeway.
2 weeks.
Sometimes you got something left over.
Actually, that's what we've done before in the
Yeah,
past.
you gotta
'Cause
shoot 'em
the,
off.
the kids
Take
are getting restless, and
You
they're like,
paid for
"I
'em, you
wanna
better
be
burn
done."
'em.
Oh, heck yeah.
You better light 'em up.
Well, we were talking about they have all kinds of stands usually at the lake. Hey, we could hit up some fireworks stands down there.
I remember the time
did that one
we
year.
did do that one
Those
year.
mortars
That was,
or those ones?
That was
Yeah.
not good.
No, it was fun.
It
That
did
was
not
fun.
turn out okay.
All of them but the 2 that flipped over. Okay.
I think of that scene in October Sky where he's like, I saw that rocket coming at me. Took me back to World War II.
They mostly went the other
They're hiding
direction.
behind the Jeep. You remember
Yeah.
that?
You're like, oh crap,
It,
go!
it dumped over and we just
Yeah.
dove behind the Jeep. Like, well, hey,
Oh my gosh.
we
We're
came
all
out
here.
We
All
have
our
all
limbs are
yes, sir,
still
we
here.
have all our
Yeah.
digits. We're good.
We're not orphans. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast.
Some of us have our tits not close together, but hey,
Mine get further apart the older I get. So
I mean, hey, I like them close tit.
I don't.
like
yeah, I
close
don't.
tit.
Maybe you should stop talking.
yeah.
You're just making it worse.
Like always, guys, you can like, share, subscribe. All of the social media links at the bottom of your screen. Red Moon Book, Red Moon Tweet, Red Moon Pics, Red Moon Twit,
Red Moon Pics.
Red Moon Tit, and search for Red Moon Productions on YouTube, as well as Rumble. We're on there as well. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, we want to stress, we will not be here next week.
It's
No
the 4th.
show next week.
If you don't
Go
like
celebrate with your family.
That's right.
And
Your
watch
close
our
friends.
review.
Yeah, watch the review.
Yeah.
Tune in for that.
Email us about it if you want. You know,
It'll only be like 5 minutes. So.
Trust me, it's and,
Yeah.
and honestly, you may not even want to watch the movie after you watch it. Yeah, you got to know. Should you go see the movie after the fireworks are done?
maybe,
Watch the review and find out.
maybe.
And you can also
Yeah.
send us an email
They
that
can email
old-fashioned
us.
way.
They can be like, hey, we didn't like this.
You can be like, hey, what's that email address?
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Look at her. Man, my tits just
dog
got
just-
closer.
She knows.
The dog
She
came out from
knows.
under the
She's
table
like,
when he
maybe
said
it's
that.
the email. She's like, oh, he's saying the email.
Yeah.
Show's
She
over.
knows it.
She likes
Show's
the
over.
voice.
It's like muscle memory.
How are you, Edie?
Oh,
she knocked the
oh,
microwave.
She
She knocked the microphone away.
She
Oh
hopped
my
right
gosh.
down, too. She's done. Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host.
Sean Sebastian.
And
Faith Cheatham.
not Mustard Love.
I figured we're going into the 4th. I'll get my real name for America.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.